Let me guess. You didn't click on this video because you're lazy. You clicked because you're tired. Tired of feeling like time is slipping through your fingers. Tired of watching the days blur into each other while your sense of direction fades. You think too much, replaying old conversations, regretting old choices, overplanning future ones that never quite materialize. You doom scroll, you distract, you delay, and somewhere in all that noise, your life has gone quiet. Not peaceful quiet, hollow quiet, the kind that makes even the most ordinary moments feel strange, pointless, like you're floating above your own existence, watching it happen, but not really in it. You look around and think, something's off, something's missing. Maybe you've even started to believe the harshest story of all, that you're the problem, that you're lazy, undisciplined, broken beyond repair. But here's something you probably haven't heard enough. You're not broken, you're not lazy, you're disoriented, and there's a world of difference between being broken and being lost. Confusion isn't a flaw, it's a signal, a sign that something about your current way of living no longer fits. And what you need isn't more pressure. It's not a 5 a.m. wake-up call or another motivational speech that fades after a week. What you need is a reset, not a surface-level change, a reset at the level of how you relate to yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you hold your own hand when things fall apart, how you define what's still possible for you. This video isn't a list of hacks, it's a descent and a return. A descent into the messy, honest truth of where you are, and a return to something you might have forgotten, your center, your clarity, your agency, not to become someone new, but to remember who you were before the noise, and to choose today to begin again. They call it procrastination, and sure, sometimes that's what it is. But often, what looks like laziness on the surface is actually something much deeper, something quieter and harder to name. Sometimes procrastination is just grief in disguise, a slow, invisible mourning for the life you thought you'd be living by now, a silent ache for the version of yourself you imagined you'd become, the one who's focused, successful, whole. You tell yourself you're just wasting time, that you need more discipline, but if you listen closely, there's usually more going on. Underneath the delay is pain, the pain of not knowing who you are anymore. The pain of facing a blank page, a quiet room, or a mirror, and realizing you feel like a stranger to your own potential. The pain of trying again and again, and still not feeling like it's enough. So you shrink, you wait, you scroll, hoping the noise will drown out the discomfort, and slowly, you begin to believe the worst lie of all. Maybe I'm just lazy, but laziness is rarely the truth. What's more likely? You're confused, you're overwhelmed, you're carrying years of unspoken disappointment and don't know where to place it. Because when you don't know what step to take, every step feels wrong. And when you can't bear the thought of failing again, it's safer not to try at all. That's not laziness. That's fear, shame, and heartbreak wrapped in silence. But here's the thing. Clarity changes everything. Not instant certainty, not a perfect plan, just a little light in the fog, a moment of self-honesty, a tiny decision that says, this is where I begin. That's how freedom starts. Not with pressure, not with shame, but with understanding, with compassion, with the courage to see yourself clearly and choose anyway. You keep waiting for the perfect moment to change, when the job finally slows down, when your schedule clears, when your energy returns, or your mind feels more stable. You tell yourself, once I've figured things out, then I'll start. But that moment, where everything is calm, clear, and convenient, it rarely, if ever, arrives. The Stoics warned us about this. Epictetus wrote, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, stop waiting to feel confident, validated, or perfectly prepared. The process of becoming who you're meant to be is rarely graceful. It's messy, awkward, and often humbling. Growth doesn't look like mastery, it looks like stumbling, trying again, and risking imperfection. There will never be a day when the stars align and you finally feel ready, because readiness isn't a feeling, it's not something you wait for, it's something you choose. It's the decision to move forward even when you're uncertain, to start anyway, knowing full well you might fail, or be misunderstood, or feel totally out of your depth. And life? Life doesn't pause just because you're not sure. It keeps moving. Time passes. Opportunities shift. You don't need more certainty. You need the courage to act without it. The reset doesn't begin when everything's under control. It begins the moment you stop negotiating with perfection and start engaging with what's real. Your current limitations, your fears, your unfinishedness. It begins when you say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to take one small step anyway. Even if you feel lost, especially if you feel lost, because feeling lost isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're searching. And that search, that willingness to begin before you're ready, is the first step towards something real. When everything feels chaotic, when your mind is racing, your emotions are tangled, and the future feels like too much, you don't need a 5-year plan. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight or suddenly become a different person. What you need is an anchor, something small, something real, something you can control right now. Maybe that anchor is cleaning your space, not because it solves everything, but because it gives you a win, a clear surface, a fresh start. Or maybe it's deleting the apps that leave you feeling scattered, drained, or less like yourself. Taking a walk, drinking a glass of water, saying the one honest thing you've been holding back. These things might seem small, even trivial, but they're not. They're actions. An action, however minor, is often the first step toward clarity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That line holds so much truth, especially in moments when life feels out of control. You can't always calm the storm, but you can return to yourself. You can choose how you respond. You can choose where to begin. Resetting your life doesn't mean reinventing it all at once. It means narrowing your focus to the few things you can change and trusting that those changes will ripple outward. Clean your room and suddenly your mind has space to breathe. Speak the truth and you stop carrying the weight of silence. Make one small decision and everything else starts to shift. Your environment is a mirror, so start there. Tidy the corner, open the window, light the candle. These aren't just chores, they're signals, little reminders that you still have agency, that you're not powerless, that healing doesn't have to be dramatic to be real. Start small, stay grounded, let that be enough for now. Of course, once you start to change, once you take that first brave step forward, the resistance shows up, like clockwork. It whispers in the back of your mind, "This won't last. You always mess this up. Who are you kidding?" That voice can feel so personal, so convincing, that it's easy to mistake it for truth. But it's not truth, it's the shadow. Carl Jung called it that, the shadow self. It's the collection of all the parts of you you've rejected, avoided, or buried. The doubts, the fears, the old stories you've told yourself about who you are and what you're worth. And when you try to grow, to reset, to step into something unfamiliar, that's when the shadow gets loud. Not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants to protect you. Even if what it's protecting is the version of you that's stuck, afraid, or small. The shadow doesn't thrive on pain. It thrives on familiarity, on keeping things predictable, even if those things are making you miserable. But here's the trick. You don't defeat the shadow by ignoring it. You don't outrun it. You face it. You say, "I see you. I know you're scared, and that's okay. But we're doing this anyway." That's integration. That's the real reset. Not erasing your fear, but learning to move alongside it. Because resetting your life doesn't mean waiting until your doubts disappear. If you do that, you'll be waiting forever. It means choosing to act even when your confidence wavers. It means letting your actions speak louder than your fear. You may still hear the old voice whispering from the background. That's normal. But with time and with consistency, your new voice, your truer voice, gets stronger. And eventually, the shadow doesn't vanish. It joins you. It walks beside you, no longer in charge, just along for the ride. Most people think change is loud, that it comes in a burst of energy, a rock bottom, a breakdown, a breakthrough, something cinematic, something you can post about. But real change, real resets, they're often the opposite. Quiet, uneventful, almost invisible to anyone else. They begin in those small private moments when something inside you finally whispers, "I can't keep living like this." That's it. That whisper. That's the beginning. No grand gesture, no perfect plan, just a shift, a subtle refusal to keep pretending. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that it doesn't demand attention. It asks for consistency, a quiet, daily, almost defiant commitment to something better, not perfect, just better. Because change isn't one big leap, it's a series of choices, a string of tiny decisions that slowly, steadily pull you toward who you were always meant to be. And that's the real secret. You're not becoming someone else. You're returning, not to your past, not to an old version of yourself, but to your inner authority, the part of you that already knows what matters, the part that's been drowned out by noise, distraction, and the pressure to be everything for everyone. You don't need a new personality. You don't need more time. You need more truth. And truth often starts with subtraction, removing the things that numb you, that drain you, that keep you stuck. It starts with listening closely to what your body resists and your soul longs for, and then honoring that, not just once, but again and again. Identity isn't fixed. It's built, brick by brick, habit by habit. You claim it not by announcing it to the world, but by embodying it in small, repeated ways. You make your bed, you speak your mind, you keep the promise you made to yourself, even when no one is watching. That's where the reset begins, not in the noise, but in the quiet, where you stop performing and start remembering. Here's the hardest truth. No one is coming to save you. Not the job, not the partner, not the perfect morning routine. No hand will reach through the clouds to lift you from the weight you carry. But here's the beauty hiding inside that truth. You don't have to wait anymore. You don't need a sign or permission or a perfect version of yourself to show up first. You can begin now, not when it feels easy, not when the fear is gone, but here, in the middle of the mess, in this ordinary, overlooked moment. And no, it won't feel like a grand transformation. It won't feel cinematic. It will feel quiet, awkward, uncertain, like standing barefoot in a house you're still learning how to rebuild. But on the other side of that discomfort is clarity. Not the kind that rushes in like thunder, but the kind that settles slowly, one honest breath at a time. First say to yourself what you would be, Epictetus wrote, and then do what you have to do, not someday, today. Because your life will not reset itself. It won't magically rearrange to fit the dream you've been carrying. But you can reset with grace, with courage, with patience. This is not a call to change everything. It's a quiet return to the one thing that's always had power. Not the world, not the outcome. You. You are the beginning. You are the turning point. And this moment, this could be your start. If this resonated with you, if you've ever found yourself caught in that fog of confusion, numbness, or quiet overwhelm, I want you to know you're not alone. So many of us go through these stretches of life where everything feels blurry, disconnected, out of sync. We start to lose the thread of who we are, and it can feel impossible to know where or how to begin again. That's why I make these videos, to speak to that part of you that still remembers, that still wants more. And if this message landed somewhere real for you, I hope you'll consider liking or subscribing. It's a small action, but it helps this channel grow. And more importantly, it helps me keep creating content for people like you, people trying to find their way back to themselves. And now, I want to hear from you. In the comments, tell me this. What's one thing in your life that needs a reset before it's too late? Don't overthink it. You already know the answer. Maybe it's your environment, your relationship with your own mind, the way you speak to yourself, the way you've been putting off your own truth. Whatever it is, name it. Make it real. Because clarity begins when we stop avoiding and start acknowledging. That's how transformation starts. Not with a plan, but with a moment of honesty. This could be your moment. Don't let it pass.